morning. You're listening to The Brief Wake Up, your mindful start to the day. I'm Handel, your daily coffee companion, helping you wake up informed, thoughtful, and maybe just a little amused before the day gets old. If you're commuting, corralling kids, or just standing in line for caffeine, you're in the right place. Let's get you caught up. First, for what should be our priority, our health. Epstein-Barr virus and lupus. Alright, let's get into something that I think is one of the most important medical stories of the week, maybe even the year. And honestly, it's something that affects way more people than you'd imagine. We're talking about lupus, and a virus that almost all of us carry around like it's no big deal. That virus is Epstein-Barr, EBV. Most of us pick it up as kids or teens. Sometimes it shows up as mono. Sometimes you don't even realize you had it. And then it just stays quiet, dormant, for life. For decades, doctors have noticed that people with lupus tend to have a stronger EBV footprint. But that's where the frustration was. You could see the connection, but we couldn't explain it. Was EBV causing lupus? Was lupus making EBV reactivate? Or were they just happening in the same people by coincidence? A new Stanford study finally blows the doors open on this mystery. Here's the big reveal. Researchers looked at individual B cells. These are the immune cells that make antibodies, and compared people with lupus to healthy people. And the difference was huge. In someone without lupus, EBV is hiding in maybe 1 out of every 10,000 B cells. But in someone with lupus, it jumps to about 1 in 400. That's not a small shift. That's a complete change in the immune landscape. But now here's where it gets really interesting. EBV isn't infecting random B cells. It's going after the autoreactive ones, the cells already predisposed to targeting your own tissues. These are the cells that sit right on the edge between normal and dangerous. And once EBV gets inside, it uses a viral protein, EBNA2, like a little molecular switch. It flips that switch, and suddenly the cell starts behaving like a ringleader. Instead of calming down, it ramps up inflammation. Instead of protecting you, it turns on you. It's like the virus finds the most irresponsible person in your immune system and hands them the keys to the car. And that's how you get the classic symptoms of lupus: joint pain, rashes, kidney issues, fatigue. The immune system misidentifying you as the enemy. Now we need to keep perspective. EBV is incredibly common. Almost everyone has it, but only a small fraction develop lupus. So the virus is part of the story, not the whole story. Your genetics, your immune wiring, maybe environmental triggers. Those all matter too. But this study finally shows a mechanism, the actual playbook for how EBV could kick off autoimmunity in someone who's genetically vulnerable. And that's a big deal. Because once you understand the mechanism, you can start targeting it. This could lead to treatments that identify and eliminate EBV-infected B cells, therapies that block the EBNA2 switch, or for the first time ever, the possibility of an EBV vaccine to lower the risk of lupus in the future. None of that is happening tomorrow, but this is how breakthroughs begin. A mystery becomes a mechanism becomes a strategy, and a strategy becomes a treatment. So the big takeaway today is this: a virus almost all of us carry might be playing a far bigger role in autoimmune disease than we realized. And this research doesn't just give us answers, it gives us hope. Hope for better treatments, hope for prevention, and hope for millions of people who live with lupus every single day, and that is your morning health report. And for the news, we are discussing another Epstein, the newly released Epstein files. This morning, we're taking a closer look at one of the most talked about document releases in recent years, the Epstein files, unsealed this week by court order and already sparking national conversation. These documents come from a long-running defamation case related to Jeffrey Epstein and Ghislaine Maxwell. For years, much of this material remained sealed. Now hundreds of pages, including deposition transcripts, emails, flight logs, and witness statements, are public for the first time. And while they're dense, legalistic, and often heavily redacted, they offer the clearest window yet into a circle of people who spent time around Epstein during the years he was running his trafficking operation. So what's actually in these files? First, it's important to be precise. The documents don't automatically prove guilt of anyone named. They reflect allegations, associations, and statements made under oath. But they do outline patterns of behavior, timelines, and social connections that investigators have long been trying to piece together. You'll see names of individuals who flew on Epstein's planes or visited his properties, testimony describing recruitment tactics used to lure minors, communications between associates, and multiple accounts from survivors that reinforce the scale of the trafficking network. Many of the names mentioned were people who crossed paths with Epstein in business, philanthropy, academia, and politics. And for some, these documents reignite questions about how close that association was. One of the big takeaways so far is how far-reaching Epstein's social network really was. The files don't paint a picture of a small, isolated operation. They show a system that intersected with powerful institutions, wealthy donors, and global figures across multiple industries. Legally, what happens next? Because these records come from a civil case, not a criminal one, the release itself doesn't start new charges, but it does give investigators, journalists, and the public more detail and more pressure to examine who knew what and when. For survivors, this release is especially meaningful. Many have spent years fighting to have their accounts taken seriously. Seeing these documents unsealed is validation, and a reminder that the full truth still hasn't fully surfaced. So while the Epstein files raise new questions, they also reveal an old lesson, that transparency matters. This story is far from over, and we'll keep you updated as more of the documents are analyzed in the days ahead. For tech and culture, welcome back to our Time Traveler's Paradox series. Parts 1 and 2 played with loops and contradictions inside our own timeline. Today, we pull back, way back, beyond Earth, beyond human history, beyond anything we've ever touched or seen. This is the Fermi paradox we discussed before. Here it comes up again. The contradiction hiding in plain sight. The universe is impossibly large. The ingredients for life are everywhere. Civilizations should have risen and fallen countless times before us. And yet, silence. Not a whisper. Not a visitor. Not even a distant intelligent signal. Nothing. And here's the twist that ties this into our time travel series. If intelligent life exists elsewhere, especially advanced, long-lived civilizations, then at least one of them should have mastered time travel, or space travel, or something we'd clearly recognize as superior technology. At least one should have come back, or passed through, or left footprints in physics we would struggle to explain. And yet, they haven't. Why? There are a few big explanations scientists argue about. 1. The Great Filter. Maybe life regularly forms, but almost never survives long enough to become interstellar. Maybe civilizations self-destruct. War, climate failure, resource collapse occur long before they get the chance to travel or communicate. In that case, the silence isn't mysterious, instead tragic. 2. They are avoiding us, not in a sci-fi don't disturb the humans way, but in a physics-driven way. If advanced civilizations preserve timelines or avoid contaminating developing worlds, they might never reveal themselves. Not because we're uninteresting, but because they're disciplined. 3. We are early, painfully early. Maybe the universe hasn't had much time to develop civilizations older than ours. Maybe we're closer to the first generation than the 100th. 4. We're not looking correctly. Our tools may simply be too primitive. Imagine ants waiting for us to communicate in pheromone patterns. They'd assume we're silent too. But here's the part that brings the paradox full circle with time travel. If time travel becomes possible for any civilization, at any point, anywhere in the universe, then the timeline becomes accessible to everyone, forever. So where are the time tourists? The historians? The observers? The civilizations advanced enough to rewrite their own past? Why isn't the timeline crowded? Unless it's not allowed. Unless timelines protect themselves. Unless every advanced civilization discovers the same truth. You can look forward, you can look outward, but you never touch the past. And you never touch someone else's beginning. Or maybe the darker answer. All the civilizations that did try aren't here anymore. In part 4, we bring it down from the cosmic to the personal. The paradox that reaches into free will, prediction, and destiny. Newcomb's paradox. A box, a prediction, and a question. If someone already knows your decision, do you really have a choice? That one hits close to home. So, if you were paying attention, you'd realize that yesterday the lighter roast was left on the cutting room floor. So here we have it. Dating apps saved modern romance and kind of ruined it. The thing that single-handedly rescued modern romance and simultaneously body slammed it into a wall. On one hand, dating apps solved a very real problem. People weren't meeting in real life anymore. Everyone was too busy, too guarded, too plugged in, too tired, or too convinced that saying hi in public is basically a federal crime. App stepped in like, relax, we'll handle the introductions. You just pick your favorite human like you're shopping for sneakers. And honestly, they work. People are finding partners they would have never crossed paths with. Apps made love accessible, efficient, and algorithm friendly. Swipe, match, boom, romance on demand. But here's the plot twist. While apps saved us from total romantic extinction, they also injected pure chaos into the dating ecosystem. Because the moment you give humans infinite options, they turn into indecisive gremlins. Instead of, is this a good match? It becomes, yeah, she's great. But let me check if there's a slightly better version 2 scrolls over. We used to date people who live near us. Now we date people who live in a 3-mile radius and then get upset that they live on the wrong side of that radius. We used to ask friends to introduce us. Now we ask apps to run a compatibility algorithm like we're ordering a customized soulmate. And the communication? Unreal. In real life, you get one shot at a first impression. On apps, you can sit there drafting the perfect message like you're writing closing arguments for a Supreme Court case. Real-life chemistry is messy. App chemistry is curated. And somewhere in that gap, something very human got lost. Because here's the truth we don't like to admit. Dating apps gave us convenience, but they took away courage. They gave us access, but they stole accountability. And they made everyone just a little too replaceable. But to be fair, they didn't ruin dating alone. They just leaned into the habits we already had. The fear of vulnerability, the love of convenience, the obsession with better options. The hope that love will feel frictionless, even though every healthy relationship requires a little friction. Maybe the sweet spot is using the apps, but not letting them train your entire romantic personality. Swipe if you must, but don't forget how to talk to a human without a buffer. Because here's the magic. Love still lives out there. Not in the algorithm, not in the curated bio, but in the moment two people stop swiping long enough to actually see each other. And for today's November 14th commemoration, we're taking a moment to honor a few observances that carry real weight, some serious, some light, all meaningful. First is World Diabetes Day, created in honor of Sir Frederick Banting, the man who helped discover insulin, a breakthrough that has saved millions of lives. But today isn't just about the medical history, it's a reminder of the world we live in right now, where type 2 diabetes is rising, younger people are being diagnosed, and metabolic health is quietly shaping the future of public health. It's a moment to pause and remember the things that protect us: movement, sleep, nutrition, early screening, the quiet habits that change everything. A day that asks us to look inward and say, how well am I taking care of the body I expect so much from? It's also International Girls' Day, a day that celebrates the strength, confidence, and potential of girls everywhere. In a world that often asks girls to be everything at once, strong but gentle, confident but not too confident, expressive but somehow never too much. Today is a reminder to give them room to grow, room to be imperfect, room to be loud, curious, emotional, brilliant, all the things we admire in adults, but too often police in children. If you're raising a daughter, teaching one, mentoring one, or simply crossing paths with one, today is a good day to encourage her voice, not soften it. And because the brief wake-up always leaves space for something lighter, it is also National Pickle Day, proof that even the calendar loves balance, a day when people who love pickles celebrate loudly, and the people who don't just pretend they don't smell it through the fridge door. From insulin to empowerment to fermented cucumbers, November 14th reminds us that life is wide, strange, serious, funny, and human. And that's worth waking up to. Today we explored how a common virus might hold one of the biggest medical breakthroughs in understanding lupus, unpacked the newly released Epstein files and what they reveal about power, secrecy, and accountability, and zoomed all the way out to the cosmic silence of the Fermi paradox. We brought it back down to earth with a look at how dating apps saved modern romance while quietly warping the way we connect. And we close by honoring World Diabetes Day, International Girls' Day, and even National Pickle Day, a reminder that our world is serious, strange, hopeful, and human all at once. I'm Handel. Be curious, be kind, and top off that cup. Till next time.